Have you ever wondered why you feel that restlessness when you enter certain rooms in your house? That heavy feeling that not even 10 hours of sleep can ease? For 37 years of my life, I was a prisoner of my own belongings without even realizing it. Until an unexpected encounter with an 83-year-old lady on an international flight completely changed my understanding of the space we inhabit. My name is Eleanor, I am 52 years old, and I will share with you what I discovered about the deep connection between our possessions and our inner peace. Do not expect tips on how to fold t-shirts or organize drawers. We go far beyond that. What I discovered transformed not only my home, but my 26-year marriage, my relationship with my adult children, and most importantly with myself. The illusion of abundance. I grew up believing that having more meant living better. My mother kept everything: plastic bags inside other plastic bags, gift wrappings crumpled in drawers, magazines stacked for years. "You never know when you might need this," she repeated like a mantra. And I, without realizing it, inherited not only her porcelain trinkets, but also that mindset of scarcity disguised as prudence. When I married Richard, we combined our collections of "one day it will be useful." 2 children later, our 3-bedroom house seemed too small. The drawers wouldn't close completely. The linen closet was a test of courage. Opening the door meant risking an avalanche of fabrics. My car stayed in the garage only on days of heavy rain. Normally, that space was occupied by boxes of keepsakes, old tools, and seasonal decorations. It's normal, I told myself. Every family lives like this. But then came that flight to visit my sister, when fate placed me next to Hannah, an elderly lady of Japanese origin with bright eyes and an energy that defied her 8 decades of life. "The concept of Ma, the power of empty space. You seem to be carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders," Hannah commented after only 20 minutes of casual conversation. I was surprised by her insight. "I work too much, I suppose," I replied automatically. She smiled. "Perhaps. Or maybe it's what you keep at home." Over the next 6 hours, between meals served on plastic trays and occasional turbulence, Hannah introduced me to the Japanese concept of Ma, the empty space that is not an absence, but a conscious presence. A concept as fundamental in Japanese culture as it was incomprehensible to my Western brain programmed to fill every available inch. In traditional Japan, she explained, the space between objects is as important as the objects themselves. It is like the pause between musical notes. Without it, there is no melody, only noise. This idea seemed too abstract until Hannah asked me to close my eyes and imagine my living room. In detail, I described every piece of furniture, the cushions, the picture frames, the collection of decorative elephants I had started at 20 and never stopped. "Now," she requested, "imagine removing half of those objects. How do you feel?" Instantly, I felt an imaginary relief, as if my lungs found more room to expand. It was frightening. The invisible mathematics of accumulation, what Hannah taught me, and what I had never found in any organization book, is that there is an invisible mathematics in accumulation. Every object we keep occupies not only physical space, but also mental space. It requires decisions: where to store it, how to maintain it, when to use it. Emotional space. It carries memories and associations, some of them heavy. Vital energy. It demands upkeep, cleaning, organization. Future time. Eventually, it will need to be moved, repaired, or discarded. Multiplying these factors by the number of accumulated items, we arrive at an invisible cost that we pay daily. In Japanese, Hannah explained, we say mono no aware, the melancholy of things. It is the acknowledgement that everything is transient. When we try to hold on too tightly to objects, we lose the beauty of impermanence. My 30-day experiment. When I returned home, I proposed an experiment to my family. For 30 days, we would follow what I called the 5-5-5 method, inspired by Hannah's teachings. Daily, each family member would discard 5 items, donate, recycle, or throw away. Reposition 5 items, find a more appropriate place for them. Reflect on 5 items, question their purpose in our lives. My practical husband, Richard, asked, "And what do we gain from that?" "Space," I replied simply. "Both physical and mental." The first few days were easy. We discarded the obvious: worn-out clothes, duplicate kitchen utensils, old magazines. Then came the moderately difficult. gifts never used, unfinished projects, souvenirs from trips. Then we reached the truly challenging, family heirlooms, things from our children's early years, objects connected to important memories. It was during this third stage that real transformations began. In the third week, I found a box with 27 school notebooks belonging to my daughter. For years, I had kept every note, every drawing, as if discarding any page would erase the memories associated with it. I sat on the attic floor and spent an entire afternoon flipping through those notebooks. I then realized something profound. I was not preserving memories, I was trying to hold back time. Every accumulated object was an anchor thrown to the past, as if it could prevent life from moving forward. I photographed some special pages, selected 3 particularly significant notebooks, and with a heavy but strangely relieved heart, placed the others in the donation pile. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without taking the anxiety pill that had become part of my routine. One of Hannah's most valuable teachings was what she called the limiting container principle. Instead of focusing on which items to discard, we must determine the space we want to dedicate to each category of objects. In traditional Japan, she explained, homes had a tokonoma, a display space where only 1 or 2 items were shown at a time, frequently changed according to the seasons. The limitation of space forced conscious choices. I implemented this by creating containment zones in our house. A single shelf for books in the process of being read. A box for each child's keepsakes. A cupboard for all kitchen utensils. A drawer for important documents. If something new arrived and the space was full, something would have to go. This simple rule eliminated the silent expansion that had overtaken our home. One of the most striking discoveries during my process was what I came to call the inherited object syndrome. The paralyzing guilt we feel when considering discarding something given to us, especially by loved ones or those who have passed away. In my living room, there was a huge, heavy sideboard that belonged to my grandmother. It occupied an entire wall, did not match anything in our house, and we constantly bumped into it while moving around the space. But getting rid of it felt like a betrayal of my grandmother's memory. Hannah taught me a practice that transformed my relationship with such objects, the ceremony of gratitude and release. I gathered my family around the sideboard. Each one shared a memory about my grandmother. We took photographs of the furniture. I placed some flowers on it and thanked out loud for the time it had been part of our family and for the memories it kept. Later, we found a young family starting out who needed furniture, and the sideboard gained a new purpose. The most surprising part? After its departure, my grandmother's memories did not diminish. In fact, they became more vivid, as if they had been released from the physical object that had confined them. The 7 types of accumulation that create disharmony. While studying more deeply the Japanese philosophy about space, I identified 7 categories of accumulation that generate specific disharmony in our lives. Accumulation of possibilities. Items we keep for maybe one day, materials for projects never started, clothes that no longer fit waiting for us to lose weight. This type of accumulation reflects an anxious attachment to the future. An accumulation of nostalgia, objects kept purely for their sentimental value, often in disproportionate quantities. It reflects difficulty in processing the past. An accumulation of identity, collections and objects we keep because they have become part of how we define ourselves. I am a person who collects decorative elephants. An accumulation of scarcity, keeping items out of fear of future need, even when the item is easily replaceable. It reflects financial or emotional insecurity. An accumulation of responsibility, objects kept out of a sense of obligation or guilt. Unwanted gifts, unappreciated inheritances. An accumulation of incompleteness, unfinished projects, unread books, incomplete courses. It creates a stagnant energy of unrealized potential. An accumulation of convention, things kept because it's what is expected. Formal dinner sets used twice a year, excessive seasonal decorations. Identifying the specific category made it much easier to address each problematic area, since each type responds to different release techniques. The domino effect in relationships. The most unexpected impact of our transformation came in our relationships. When the physical space opened up, something happened to the emotional space between us. Richard, who initially participated in the experiment just to please me, confessed that he felt a relief he hadn't known he needed. "It's like I can breathe better," he said one evening. "Not just at home, but in my head." Our family dinners, once rushed and often in front of the TV, naturally migrated to the dining table, now free from piles of mail and unfinished projects that had made it unusable. Conversations changed. Without the constant distraction of visual clutter around us, we found ourselves more present with one another. Our eldest son remarked, "It's strange, but ever since you started this decluttering thing, you fight a lot less." He was right. The small daily irritations, where to put things, who left what out of place, the frustration of not finding something, had drastically diminished. The secret of takumi, objects with purpose. Another concept Hannah shared with me was that of takumi, the Japanese artisanal mastery that values a few objects of excellence rather than many of inferior quality. In traditional Japan, she explained, a person might have only a few kimonos, but each one would be crafted with extraordinary care and last for decades. A well-made kitchen knife replaces 10 mediocre ones. Inspired by this concept, I began to reevaluate not only the quantity but the quality and intentionality of the objects in our home. Instead of buying cheap coats every winter, we invested in a single one of excellent quality for each family member. Our kitchen, once overflowing with plastic utensils that constantly broke, now contains few durable and well-designed items. The surprise came when we calculated the financial impact of this change. We spent less in the long run and experienced greater satisfaction. The practice of the threshold moment. One of the most transformative techniques I developed was what I call the threshold moment. A conscious pause before allowing any new item to cross the threshold of our home. When I feel tempted to make an impulsive purchase, I ask myself 3 questions. Will this object serve multiple purposes or just one? Will it replace something that already exists or be an addition? In 30 days, will I still feel the same enthusiasm for it? This simple practice reduced our impulsive purchases by more than 70%. More importantly, it eliminated that familiar feeling of remorse when the initial excitement for a new item fades, leaving only wasted space. I extended this practice beyond purchases, to social commitments, projects, and even relationships. The concept of conscious entry became a life philosophy, not just a method of organization. The transformation of sleep and health. 6 months after our conversation on the plane, I sent an email to Hannah with updates on our journey. I included a surprising revelation. For the first time in 15 years, my blood pressure had normalized. My doctor, initially skeptical about the connection between my more organized home and my improved health, eventually acknowledged, chronic stress raises blood pressure. If your environment was causing that stress, then yes, there is a direct relationship. Our sleep patterns also changed dramatically. Without the constant visual stimulation and the subliminal feeling of unfinished tasks, we fell asleep more easily. Nighttime awakenings decreased. Mornings became less chaotic. Richard, who had suffered from back pain for years, noticed a significant reduction in his symptoms. We realized that part of his problem was the constant tension of navigating cramped spaces and the defensive posture he unconsciously adopted in crowded environments. Inspired by the Japanese tradition of deliberately changing elements of the home according to the seasons, we implemented a quarterly ritual. At every change of season, we revisited our spaces with fresh eyes. We swapped some decorative pieces, re-evaluated what worked and what didn't, and made intentional adjustments. This ritual connected us more deeply with the natural cycles and brought a renewed sense of possibility every 3 months. The house never became stagnant, it breathed and evolved with us. In the spring, we removed layers of winter comfort. In the summer, we created more open spaces and flow. In the fall, we reintroduced cozy textures. In the winter, we emphasized light and warmth. This practice taught us that a house is not a final state to be achieved, but a continuous process, just like ourselves. As our physical home transformed, I realized that the principle could extend to other dimensions of our lives. Informational diet. We drastically reduced our consumption of news and social media, creating designated times instead of constant access. As social commitments, we implemented the one in, one out rule for our social calendar, ensuring room to breathe between events. At work, Richard completely reorganized his office, eliminating visual distractions. His productivity increased so much that he managed to negotiate an extra day of remote work. Finances. We simplified our accounts, automated payments, and eliminated unused subscription services, creating more financial clarity. The universal principle that Hannah shared with me proved true: space is not absence, it is presence. And where we create space, we create potential. One of the most counterintuitive revelations of this journey was how our relationship with memories changed. I feared that discarding objects would mean losing the memories attached to them. I discovered the opposite. When I kept 27 school notebooks of my daughter, I rarely revisited any of them. The volume made the task overwhelming. By keeping only 3, I revisit them regularly, and the memories remain vivid. Neuroscientists call this memory consolidation, the process by which our brain strengthens certain memories through revisitation. By consciously selecting a limited number of memory objects, we create a system that truly reinforces our connections with the past, rather than overwhelming them. Hannah explained it beautifully. In the Japanese tea ceremony, we drink from a single simple bowl, allowing us to fully appreciate its design, texture, and the experience of the moment. If we had 20 different bowls on the table, none would receive our complete attention. One often neglected aspect of organization is what we cannot see: sound, air, and energy. As our home opened up physically, we became more aware of other forms of pollution. Noise pollution. We identified constant background noises that we had normalized: the hum of devices on standby, notifications, unnecessary fans. Air quality. With fewer objects collecting dust, we noticed a significant improvement. We strategically added plants and established a ritual of opening windows daily for at least 15 minutes, regardless of the weather. Light pollution. We eliminated unnecessary lights, especially the blue ones from electronic devices, which affected our sleep without us realizing it. One of the most impactful changes was our digital curfew. The practice of turning off the Wi-Fi router at 9 p.m., creating a genuine space for conversation, reading, and reflection before sleep. Perhaps the deepest lesson I learned from Hannah was the importance of intentional emptiness. In Japanese philosophy, ma is not just a spatial concept, but a spiritual one. The acknowledgement that emptiness is not a problem to be solved, but a resource to be cultivated. I created areas of conscious ma in our home: a corner of the living room deliberately free of furniture, a wall without pictures, a shelf with just one object. These empty spaces serve as visual pauses, allowing our eyes and minds to rest. We noticed that these empty spaces often became the most vital in the house, where meaningful conversations happen spontaneously, where creative ideas emerge, where we feel most present. As Hannah eloquently said, emptiness is where possibility lives. If there is one thing I learned on this journey, it is that true change cannot be forced. When I initially tried to impose these ideas on my family, I encountered resistance. It was only when the benefits became evident that adherence naturally emerged. Each person has their own pace of detachment. My husband started slowly, but eventually surpassed my enthusiasm. Our daughter adopted the principles immediately. Our son needed more time and still maintains areas of controlled accumulation in his space. And that's perfectly fine. As Hannah taught me, it is not about creating a perfectly minimalist space that meets some external aesthetic ideal. It is about creating an environment that genuinely supports our well-being and purpose. For some people, this means walls of books up to the ceiling because literature is their passion. For others, it means a studio full of artistic materials in creative chaos. The secret is not the absence of objects, but the presence of intention. Now, 2 years after my encounter with Hannah, our home has transformed in ways I never imagined possible. It is not only more organized or aesthetically pleasing, although it is both. The deepest change is how it makes us feel. Our home has become a place of restoration instead of depletion. A space that supports our goals instead of competing with them. An environment that allows us to be fully present with one another. Recently, our daughter brought friends over for dinner. One of them commented, "Your home has such a good energy. I immediately feel relaxed here." It was the highest compliment I could have received. In the end, the greatest gift Hannah gave me was not an organization system, but a new way of seeing the world. I now understand that our relationship with objects reflects our relationship with time, with others, and with ourselves. When we let go of what no longer serves us, we are not losing. We are gaining the most precious resource of all, space to live fully in the present. And you? Are you ready to discover what kind of life can flourish in the spaces you free up?